What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the video, and today we have a video from Amoha 16 Machinima and Film, and he has a video about why Gears of War 2 will never be topped. Now, for those of you who may not know, if you want to check out my Gears of War ranking, I'll leave a link to that in the description below, but I have like the multiplayer and the campaigns ranking or whatever the case. Gears of War 2 is my favorite Gears of War game. There are other games that have surpassed it in certain mechanics and the way that, the gameplay goes. But when we're talking about overall, the complete package, Gears 2 is my very favorite. So in today's video, we're going to listen to his opinions, and I'm going to see if I agree with them. I'm going to guess I probably will. Or if I disagree with them. So if you guys enjoy this video and you want to see me react to videos like this, if you find a video on like any other type of games or movies or TV shows you want to see me react to, let me know in the comments below, because if I use your suggestion, I will give you a shout out in that video. But with that said, guys, let us begin. That was the first trailer for Gears 2, I remember that. That was like the teaser back
Since
in
the
the day.
release of Gears of War in 2006, the franchise has become one of the most played and best-selling game franchises in the gaming industry, spawning sequels, more installments, as well as a comic book series and novels. The first Gears of War game at the time was revolutionary, especially for the shooter genre for games.
And
the
for
game
graphics.
presented a very strong emphasis on cover-based combat gameplay in which
These graphics don't look that great on the screen right now, okay? And if you played the game right now, the original one, they look bad. Like, these are bad graphics by today's standards, but at the time, and I always say this, at the time, for those of you who might be too young to remember the jump from PS2 to 360 times, right? These graphics were the best graphics in gaming. They made your eyes melt. You couldn't believe a game could look so realistic. Like I said, you look back at it now, it doesn't exactly hold up as well, but at one time, this was cream of the crop. So good.
players can use objects to avoid attacks such as gunfire and safely engage enemies, both tactical strategies which could be used against AI and player versus player multiplayer. But the one aspect about Gears of War games that made the franchise so memorable was its grim tone, and the series' first sequel, Gears of War 2, carried over that aspect of its predecessor and not only built on it, but escalated it even further. Something that most game sequels rarely do. Gears of War 2 was a sequel that not only upgraded and outshined the first Gears of War, and arguably the other installments that came after it, but took the series into a world that was not only serious and dark, but very real, and would become one of the greatest video game sequels of all time.
It's up there with like Gears 3. Or not Gears 3. It's up there, well, Gears 3 was pretty good, but it's up there with like Halo 3. That's what I meant. Like Halo 3, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 4.
Most say that Gears of War 2 was just like any other sequel,
Gears 2.
similar to a sequel to a blockbuster movie. It
Great.
took the best qualities from its predecessor and exaggerated on it. Gears of War 2 is no exception to this, but what separates it from other game sequels was its seriousness to go even deeper into what made the first game so great.
Yep.
And I'm not just talking about the gameplay specifically. Obviously, newer installments to games improve and add new features to keep players engaged, have fun, and learn something to keep the games fresh over time. Gears of War 2 kept all of what was done in the first game with the addition of some new aspects. But Gears of War 2 added another layer of quality that the other Gears of War games in the series have not been able to repeat. True skill. In regard to veterans and versus players in Gears of War multiplayer, Gears of War 2 was the first and last Gears of War game that had true skill ranking system, maps, campaign, and big multiplayer. Gears of War 2's multiplayer ranking system was very hard to play and master, where players had to have the abilities to adapt to certain absolute reality situations while playing, instead of the current trend in Gears games today, which rely on connection, game error, validation, location, and illegitimate actions. Gears of War 2, the playing field and all parties in the level of competition were equal, and it all came down to games of split seconds, inches, and player intelligence.
And whoever
To
had a
add,
host.
Players
Don't
of
forget
Gears 2
that.
had to evolve and push themselves to great efforts.
Whoever had a host in Gears 2, man, you won. Like whoever team had the host of the server, they won. That's just how it is.
Become better, succeed, and win. Gears of War 2's world was very grim from start to finish. It was a game that kept players hoping good things would happen but never did. In other words, Gears of War 2 didn't allow players to defeat the evil and escape the darkness happening in the world of the game, but instead continued to sink the player lower and lower into it. The first act of the game opens up with a big level of uncertainty. Players are thrown into a world with protagonists that have little hope of succeeding, which is winning a war against a monstrous and very ruthless enemy. There are bright moments throughout the game's story, but the events mostly end with great sorrow and loss. Gears of War 2 was a game about warfare and what warfare truly is, and the game's narrative gave players no breathing room to escape from it from beginning to end. The lead developers of the game wanted to add a great depth of seriousness to Gears of War 2. Unlike the first one, which was a dark, gothic, chilling shoot-'em-up with good spectacle, Cliff Bleszinski, one of the founding fathers of Gears of War, while working on Gears of War 2 back in 2008 in an interview with Joystick stated, "I wanted it to feel like more of a war. And it's not just about having the big battle scenes with the hundreds of locusts. It's not just about the huge beautiful vistas that the player gets to see or the tank shooting the Brumak down in front of you, or the choppers crashing. It's all about the writing and the levels. Going into the Hollow and hearing the other radio chatter from other people who are dropping into the underground, and they're lost, and it's foreshadowing what players are going to encounter later in the underground. It's everything to give more of a sense not only of the scale, but also what's at stake for humanity." And this direction stays extremely consistent throughout Gears of War 2's narrative.
Back there! Locusts are killing everyone back there!
Watch your fire around the civilians!
While other game series have taken similar narrative directions, they tend to always lose themselves along the way in adding that exciting wow factor to keep players entertained. Gears of War 2's narrative doesn't do any of that, and when the spectacles do happen, you don't always feel that vibe of excitement, but instead feel a level of uncertainty and anxiety. Although there are a good amount of exciting moments in Gears of War 2, most of them are short-lived.
Ty!
Poor Ty.
Gears
He's my
2
favorite
was a very
Gears character.
immersive game delivering
He's the
a
best.
chilling, suspenseful,
In my mind,
epic,
he's still alive.
unsettling revelation story that kept players involved from the start to finish. For a game that started out introducing us to characters that were simply just soldiers fighting a war against monsters, every dynamic in Gears 2 is so well developed, and all the voice actors have such great chemistry, it never feels like you're playing a typical third-person shooting game killing bad guys with cool characters.
Seem to have that effect on people.
You feel like
I want a
you're playing
remake of
a
this
video
game so
with
bad.
real people. Real people with actual flaws and real feelings for each other. Delivering masterclass voice acting with a lot of real dialogue and much improv from the voice cast that all pulls at the heartstrings, making even one of the most badass characters in video gaming lore heavy-hearted. I was personally in disbelief that despite all the awesome, epic, fun proportions that Gears 2 had to offer, we got a whole entire epic campaign mainly about just two friends. A whole compelling story about a very cold, gruff, aggressive, professional soldier and a very sincere, wholehearted comrade. It was a game all about story, tension, and character.
This is everything we've been fighting for.
Yeah? Well, Maria's everything I've been fighting for. She's my fucking wife, alright?
So you gonna turn your back on your whole world then? The other Gears we fought with? All the people who've died?
I'm sorry, Marcus. After what you did for your father, I thought you'd understand.
And speaking of character, Gears 2 has the best characters and development out of all the games in the series. There is a saying in the art and work of screenwriting, a really good script never goes out of style. You have to have strong character work for a story to really have an impact. Characters are everything in video games, and that reason is why Gears of War 2 was so perfect. We spend a lot of quality time with them, seeing how they interact, gaining an understanding of what is at stake, their objectives, all subconsciously develops later sequences throughout the game's story to be much more effective. Some of the characters in Gears 2 are stereotypes, but they are all given just enough humanity at the right times for us to care and not making them all one-dimensional. such as characters Ty Kaliso and Dizzy Wallen's short and small developments from just soldiers serving in the COG army to likable heroes.
Yeah, Ty and Dizzy
Benjamin Carmine being the
great.
young, inexperienced, panicked, goofy kid soldier slowly but surely coming into his own.
Where's Carmine?
Yeah, he's still my favorite Carmine. Clayton's cool too, but
Sarge! Get your ass in
Ben,
here now!
Ben is the best
Rookie, this
Carmine.
ain't the big game yet. Send your ass with a payoff.
The tension in Gears 2 is also fantastic. When players enter into the Hollow for the first time all the way to the Locust Stronghold, we know things are going to happen, but we don't know how. When the characters have to hijack an enemy boat to get to their destination, knowing they have to go through multiple enemy
This was an
forces,
intense
only
level.
to find out
I
that
remember
there
that
are
level.
other dangerous threats they have to go through than just the Locusts themselves. Our heroes discovering over time that there is more than meets the eye to their enemy. The threat the characters are up against could be more dangerous than they imagined. And I've gone without mentioning one of the final qualities that wraps everything all up that made Gears of War 2 into a masterpiece. The score.
Yeah, the music. The music in the first game was great, but the music in the second game, it smacked.
Steve Jablonski's score elevated Gears 2 to something very grand, operatic, as well as intense, and it supports all the action, dialogue, and menace of the game beautifully. Was Gears of War 2 a perfect game? No. But in regard to the series as a whole, this was as perfect of a Gears of War game as you can get. I personally adored the realism and true skill of Gears of War 2, and how the entire story campaign was all character driven. Once again, I have to say, the meta for gameplay and features in Gears of War will inevitably change for the better or worse over time, and I am not disputing any of that. Gears of War 2 may be a relic of the past in the game series, but the game's quality is much superior than all of its aftercomers. Gears of War 2 was a masterpiece that defined the Gears of War franchise, and a masterpiece that very likely, arguably, will never, ever be topped.
Soldiers of the COG, my
Yeah.
fellow Gears, go forth and bring back the hope of humanity.
Yes, that was a good video, guys. Make sure to go over to Omaha's channel and subscribe. I'm going to say this. Gears of War 2 and Halo 3. Those are the two games that I want remakes for. Two of my favorite games ever. And I want remakes. So give it to me. Because that's what I want. And if I don't get what I want, well, people are going to pay. But what do you guys think? What is your favorite Gears game? What is your least favorite Gears game? Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking, subscribing, and turn notifications for more videos. And like I mentioned earlier, if you guys find any videos like this you want to see me react to, let me know in the comments, because if I use your suggestion, I will give you a shout out in that video. But thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you next one. Peace.